Rain drummed against the car windows, blurring the lights of evening Busan. Yu-jin looked at the familiar streets through the tinted glass of the premium sedan, and her heart beat steadily like a metronome. 5 years. 5 long years she had prepared for this moment. She returned to her hometown 5 years after the tragedy. Now her former classmates, who drove her to attempt suicide, would beg for mercy. But revenge is served cold. These words echoed in her head like a mantra that had sustained her all these years. Yu-jin was no longer the broken 17-year-old girl who 5 years ago stood on the school building's roof, ready to take the final step into the void. Now she was 22, a successful psychologist, owner of the rehabilitation center chain New Dawn, which brought in millions in revenue. Her name was known throughout the country, her methods were studied in universities, and her success story inspired thousands of people. But no one knew that all of this was merely an instrument for one single goal: revenge. The driver stopped the car near the elite residential complex Marbe. Yu-jin had bought a penthouse here 3 months ago, carefully choosing the location. From here, she had a view of the entire harbor, and most importantly, of the school where her tragedy had unfolded. "Miss Han, we've arrived," the driver said softly. "Thank you, Min-soo. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, pick me up at the center." Yu-jin stepped out of the car, and the cold spring wind touched her face. She breathed in deeply the salty sea air. Yes, she was home. And now the real game would begin. In the spacious apartment, folders with dossiers on each of her former tormentors awaited her. Over these years, she had studied their lives down to the smallest details. Private detectives, hackers, psychological profiles, she had spared no expense in preparation. Kang Hyun-woo, 33 years old, the main bully who had turned her school years into hell. Now he was vice president of his father's construction company, married to the daughter of influential politician Lee Soo-jin, had a 7-year-old son. Perfect life, perfect family, perfect career. But Yu-jin knew about his panic attacks, about how he secretly visited a psychiatrist, about his alcohol problems that he carefully hid from his wife. Park Ji-ho, 29 years old, former captain of the football team, who had sadistically humiliated her in front of the entire school. Now owner of a fitness club chain, bachelor, playboy. But he had debts to criminal organizations, and his business was falling apart. Cho Ming-ji, 30 years old, the cruelest of the girl bullies, queen of the school, who had turned tormenting Yu-jin into an art form. Now an influential PR manager, married to famous actor Kang Tae-hyun. But she had a secret, an affair with a married director that could destroy not only her marriage but also her career. And finally, Lim Se-hun, 28 years old, the quiet accomplice who never hit her but filmed the humiliations and posted them online. Now a programmer at a large IT company, an introvert living with his mother. He had a collection of child pornography on his computer that even he didn't know about. Yu-jin had taken care of that in advance. She laid out the photographs on the table and slowly walked around the room. Beyond the panoramic windows stretched the night city where she had once wanted to die. Now it would become the arena of her triumph. The next morning, Yu-jin stood before the mirror in her new office, a branch of New Dawn in Busan. Strict business suit, hair gathered in an elegant bun, minimal makeup. She looked like a successful professional who inspired trust and respect. No one would recognize the tormented schoolgirl in her. At 10 in the morning, she had her first meeting. Lee Soo-jin, Kang Hyun-woo's wife, had made an appointment under a false name. A private detective had reported that the woman had serious problems in her marriage. Her husband had become cold and distant, started drinking, often stayed late at work. Soo-jin suspected infidelity and was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. When the woman entered the office, Yu-jin felt a strange satisfaction. Soo-jin was beautiful, but her beauty was fading from constant stress. Dark circles lay under her eyes, her hands nervously fingered the strap of her purse. "Dr. Han?" she said uncertainly. "My name is Kim Yun-hee." "Please, sit down," Yu-jin said gently, gesturing toward a comfortable chair. "Tell me what's troubling you." The next hour, Yu-jin poured out her soul, telling about her fears and suspicions. Yu-jin listened attentively, occasionally asking leading questions that made the woman delve deeper into painful details. She was a master of her craft. Over years of practice, she had learned to find the most vulnerable points of the human psyche. "Your husband is experiencing a midlife crisis," Yu-jin finally said. "It's quite a common phenomenon among successful men of his age. Tell me, has he ever told you about his childhood? About his school years?" Yu-jin frowned. "No, he doesn't like talking about the past at all. Always avoids the topic." "I understand. He probably has some unresolved traumas from that period. This can seriously affect his behavior in the present." Yu-jin made a note in a notebook, though she had nothing to write. She already knew more about Hyun-woo than his own wife. "I recommend family therapy," she continued, "and separate sessions for your husband. I have a colleague who specializes in male psychology." Actually, there was no colleague. Yu-jin planned to work with Hyun-woo herself, but it was too early to reveal her cards. After Yu-jin left, Yu-jin called her assistant. "Min-jun, activate Plan Alpha. We need Kang Hyun-woo to learn about the best psychologist in the city. Make it look natural, a colleague's recommendation, an article in a business magazine, anything." "Understood, boss." "What about the other targets?" "Meeting with Park Ji-ho tomorrow. He's looking for an investor for a new project. We'll arrange a chance meeting with Cho Min-ji at the charity auction on Friday. And Lim Se-hun. We'll wait with him for now." Yu-jin went to the window and looked at the city below. Somewhere out there lived the people who had turned her life into a nightmare. But now she was the predator, and they were the unsuspecting prey. The meeting with Park Ji-ho took place in an expensive restaurant in the business center. He had barely changed, still the same self-confident smile, pumped-up figure, expensive clothes. But Yu-jin saw what was hidden behind the facade, nervousness in his movements, sweat on his forehead despite the coolness in the room. "Miss Han," Ji-ho stood and extended his hand for a handshake. "Thank you for the meeting. I've heard about your successes, it's impressive." Yu-jin shook his hand, suppressing the urge to show disgust. With these hands he had once pushed her in the corridor, torn her textbooks, doused her with water from puddles. "Please sit down, Mr. Park. Tell me about your project." Ji-ho began presenting a new premium fitness club, but Yu-jin was only half listening. She knew his financial situation was catastrophic. Debts to creditors, loan defaults, threats from criminal organizations. This project was his last straw. "Sounds interesting," she said when he finished. "But I need more information about the financial condition of your current establishments." Ji-ho's face darkened. "What exactly interests you?" "Everything. Income, expenses, debt obligations. You understand, Mr. Park, I'm not used to investing blindly." She took a folder from her purse and placed it on the table. Ji-ho paled, recognizing the documents. This was complete information about his debts, including those that were officially impossible to know about. "Where did you get?" "I have good analysts," Yu-jin replied calmly. $3 million in debt, of which $1.5 million is to criminal organizations. Defaults on major loans. Last week collectors came to your home, and now you sleep with a baseball bat under your bed." Ji-ho swallowed. His self-confidence evaporated without a trace. "What do you want?" "To help you," Yu-jin smiled. "I'm ready to cover all your debts and give money for a new project. In return, I want just a small favor." "What kind?" "Information about your old friends. Kang Hyun-woo, Cho Min-ji, Lim Se-hun. I know you still communicate." Ji-ho frowned. "Why do you need this?" "I have business interests related to them. Nothing criminal, just business intelligence." This was a lie, but Ji-ho was desperate. Half an hour later, He was already signing the contract without reading the fine print. Yu-jin had gained another puppet in her game. 2 weeks had passed since Yu-jin's return to Busan. During this time, she had managed to gain Soo-jin's trust, acquire Ji-ho as an informant, and casually meet Min-ji at the charity auction. Everything was going according to plan. And finally, the time had come to meet with the main target. Kang Hyun-woo had made an appointment under the name Lee Jun-ho. Apparently, he didn't want anyone to know about his visits to a psychologist. Yu-jin carefully prepared for this meeting. She changed her hairstyle, put on glasses without diopters, chose a different manner of speech. Hyun-woo shouldn't recognize her. Not yet. When he entered the office, Yu-jin felt her heartbeat quicken. Hyun-woo had barely changed, still the same dark hair, now neatly styled, still the same proud posture. But there was fatigue in his eyes that hadn't been there in school years. Dr. Han? He extended his hand for a handshake. Yes, please sit down. Yu-jin shook his hand, trying not to show her excitement. What brought you to me? Hyun-woo sat in the chair and was silent for several seconds, choosing his words. I have problems with sleep. Nightmares. And anxiety attacks. How long has this been going on? About 2 years. At first rarely, now almost every night. Yu-jin took notes, observing him. Hyun-woo was nervous but tried to hide it. Interesting, the very person who had once seemed to her the embodiment of confidence and strength was now sitting before her like an ordinary patient with psychological problems. Tell me about the nightmares. What do you see? Hyun-woo was silent, then quietly said, School. I'm back in school, and there's one girl there. She's standing on the roof, ready to jump. And I understand that it's my fault. Yu-jin barely restrained herself from flinching. So he remembered. Remembered and suffered. Are these real memories or just a dream? Real, he whispered. We drove her to this. I drove her to this. And she would have jumped if not for the teacher who stopped her. What happened to her afterward? She disappeared. Transferred to another school, and then left the city altogether. No one knows what became of her. I know, thought Yu-jin. She became stronger. And now she's sitting in front of you. Do you feel guilt for what happened? Every day, Hyun-woo's voice trembled. I was 17, I was a stupid teenager, but that's no excuse. We bullied her simply because we could. Because she was different. Quiet, smart, beautiful. And that infuriated me. Beautiful? Yu-jin was surprised. Did he really consider her beautiful? Why exactly did that infuriate you? Hyun-woo ran his hand through his hair. Because I liked her. Even then. But I didn't know how to express it, and instead, I hurt her. Like a scared child who pulls the pigtails of a girl he likes. Yu-jin froze. This was the last thing she expected to hear. Did you try to find her? To apologize? I tried. Hired private detectives, contacted search agencies. But Han Yu-jin disappeared as if she had dissolved into thin air. The name sounded like a blow. He pronounced it so carefully, as if afraid that it would cause pain. And what would you say to her if you met her? Hyun-woo raised his eyes and looked directly at her. There was such pain in his gaze that Yu-jin felt strange confusion. That I'm sorry. That not a day goes by that I don't think about what I did. That if I had a chance to fix everything, I would give everything for it. After Hyun-woo left, Yu-jin sat in her office for a long time, staring at one point. His words didn't fit into her revenge plan at all. She had prepared to meet a cold, cruel person who hadn't changed over the years. But instead, she saw a man sincerely suffering from guilt. This is just manipulation, she tried to convince herself. He sensed danger and is trying to make me feel sorry for him. But her inner voice whispered something else. The pain in his eyes was real. And the way he pronounced her name. Yu-jin shook her head. No, she wouldn't let emotions knock her off her path. Too many years she had prepared for this moment, too much pain she had endured because of him and his friends. A phone call interrupted her thoughts. Boss, I have news about Cho Min-ji. Her assistant's voice sounded excited. She took our bait. She wants to meet with you about a PR campaign for New Dawn. Excellent. Schedule a meeting for tomorrow. And Lim Se-han accepted our random meeting at the IT club. He agreed to help with developing a mobile application for the center. Everything was going according to plan. But for some reason, Yu-jin didn't feel her former satisfaction. That evening, she stood on the balcony of her penthouse, looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there, in one of those houses, Hyun-woo was tormented by nightmares about her. And she was making plans for his destruction. What's happening to me? She thought. Am I starting to pity him? Memory helpfully threw up recollections, how he pushed her in the corridor, how he laughed when others doused her with food, how he filmed her humiliations on his phone. But now these memories were mixed with new images, his tired eyes, trembling voice, sincere pain. No, Yu-jin said firmly to herself. I won't back down. It's too late to change anything. The meeting with Cho Min-ji took place in one of the most prestigious hotels in the city. Min-ji had barely changed, still the same groomed beauty, expensive outfits, arrogant expression. But Yu-jin knew about the cracks in this perfect facade. Dr. Han, Min-ji extended her hand with perfect manicure. I'm so glad for our meeting. Your reputation precedes you. If only you knew, thought Yu-jin, smiling in response. Thank you. Tell me about your ideas for the PR campaign. Min-ji took out a tablet and began the presentation. Her ideas were professional and creative, one had to give her credit. But Yu-jin wasn't listening to the project, but to Min-ji herself, intonations, pauses, gestures. She was looking for pressure points. Impressive work, Yu-jin said when the presentation ended. But I need time to think. By the way, how is your husband? Kang Tae-hyun, if I'm not mistaken? Min-ji's face barely noticeably tensed. He's busy filming a new movie. The director is very demanding, has to work a lot. Park Jin-woo? Yes, I've heard about his methods. They say he can be very intense in working with actors. Min-ji paled. Yu-jin knew about her affair with the director, knew where and when they met, even knew that last week Min-ji had taken a pregnancy test. I don't know what you mean. Nothing special, Yu-jin smiled easily. Just professional interest. At our center, we work a lot with married couples where one spouse is in a creative profession. It creates special tension in relationships. Yes, that's true, Min-ji was clearly nervous. Creative people are very emotional. And impulsive. Sometimes they do things they later regret. Yu-jin stood and went to the window. You know, Min-ji, I have a proposal. I'll take you as a PR manager, but with one condition. I want you to help me with one project. What kind? I'm writing a book about school bullying. A psychological analysis of how childhood grievances affect adult life. I need real stories, interviews with people who faced this problem. Both from the victim's position and from the aggressor's position. Min-ji shrank in her chair. That's a very specific topic. Yes, but important. I'm sure you have acquaintances who could share their experience. Maybe even from school years? Possibly, Min-ji said barely audibly. Excellent. Then we have a deal. When Min-ji left, Yu-jin felt a rush of adrenaline. Another puppet in her hands. But for some reason, instead of triumph, she felt emptiness. The next day, Yu-jin was working late in her office when her secretary reported an unexpected visitor. Dr. Han, Mr. Lee Junho came to see you. He says it's urgent. Hyunwoo. Yu-jin felt her heartbeat quicken. Show him in. She quickly assumed her usual image, glasses and wig. Hyunwoo entered the office, and Yu-jin immediately noticed his condition. He was agitated, disheveled, desperation could be read in his eyes. Dr. Han, forgive me for bothering you so late, but I need help. Sit down, tell me what happened. Hyunwoo sat on the edge of the chair, clenching and unclenching his fists. This morning I woke up with a clear memory. Not a dream, but a memory. About that girl, Han Yu-jin. I remembered the last day I saw her. Yu-jin froze. What exactly did you remember? She was standing on the school roof. I went up there too. I don't know, maybe to torment her again. But when I saw her face, God, there was such pain in her eyes. And I realized we had gone too far. Hyunwoo's voice trembled. I tried to talk to her, say something, but she looked at me and said, "You got what you wanted. Now I'll disappear, and you'll be happy." And then she added, "But no, someday I'll return. And then you'll understand what real pain is." Yu-jin felt goosebumps run down her spine. She didn't remember these words. At that moment she was in a state of complete despair. But judging by Hyunwoo's face, he was telling the truth. And what happened next? The teacher came and took her away. And the next day she didn't come to school. And never came again. Hyunwoo raised his eyes to her, full of torment. Dr. Han, I'm going crazy. It seems to me that she really returned. That she's somewhere here, in this city, and preparing revenge. I know this sounds paranoid, but why do you think so? Strange coincidences. My wife started going to a psychologist, and now she asks me strange questions about school years. Jiho suddenly found a rich investor who is interested in our company of friends. Mingji got a contract with a large rehabilitation center. And Sehun is developing an application for some psychological clinic. Yu-jin tried to remain calm, but inside everything went cold. He was beginning to understand. Maybe these really are coincidences? No, Hyunwoo said firmly. I feel it. She returned. And now she's playing with us like a cat with mice. He stood and went to the window. You know what's strangest? I'm not afraid. I deserved this. We all deserved it. But I'm afraid for my wife, for my son. They're not guilty of anything. What are you going to do? Find her. Meet face to face. Say what I should have said 15 years ago. Hyunwoo turned to her. Dr. Han, help me. You're a psychologist, you understand people. How do you find someone who doesn't want to be found? Yu-jin looked at him and felt her carefully constructed plan crumbling. He wasn't the monster she had hated all these years. He was a person who sincerely repented his actions. I will think about it, she said. But now you need to calm down. Take a sedative and try to sleep. Hyunwoo nodded and headed for the exit. At the door, he stopped. Dr. Han? If she really returned and somehow learns about our meetings, please tell her I'm ready to accept any punishment. But let her know I loved her. Even then, when I caused pain. After Hyunwoo left, Yu-jin collapsed in her chair. Her hands were shaking, her heart was beating so fast that she was afraid of losing consciousness. All the years of preparation, all the hatred that gave her strength, all of this was beginning to crumble. She took out her phone and dialed her psychiatrist's number in Seoul. Dr. Choi? This is Yu-jin. I need an emergency consultation. What happened? You sound upset. I don't know who I am. Everything I believed in turned out to be a lie. Yu-jin, breathe deeper. Tell me in order. The next hour, Yu-jin poured out her soul, telling about her revenge plan, about meetings with Hyun-woo, about what she now felt. "I understand," said Dr. Choi when she finished. "Yu-jin, do you remember what we talked about in the first sessions? About how revenge is an attempt to regain control over a situation where you felt powerless." "Yes. But now you're not a powerless girl. You're a strong, successful woman. You no longer need to prove your strength by causing pain to others." "But they deserved." "Deserved what?" "Hyun-woo has been tormented by guilt for 15 years. Isn't that punishment? And the others? Ji-ho is on the verge of bankruptcy, Min-ji risks losing her family, Se-hun lives like a hermit. Life has already punished them." Yu-jin was silent, processing his words. "What should I do?" "What you've always done best, help people heal. Start with yourself." The next day, Yu-jin canceled all meetings and spent the whole day at home, thinking. By evening, she had made a decision. She dialed Hyun-woo's number. "Hello? This is Dr. Han. I need to meet with you. Tonight, in my office." "Did something happen?" "Yes. I found Han Yu-jin." Silence reigned in the receiver. "I'll be there in an hour," Hyun-woo finally said. Yu-jin changed into a simple black dress, let down her hair, took off her glasses. When Hyun-woo entered the office, she was standing by the window with her back to the door. "Dr. Han? You said you found her." "Yes," Yu-jin replied quietly, not turning around. She was nearby all the time. "What do you mean?" Yu-jin slowly turned around. In the dim light of the office, her face seemed different, younger, more vulnerable. "Hello, Hyun-woo. My name really is Han Yu-jin." Hyun-woo froze. For several seconds he just looked at her, then took a step back. "This is impossible." "Very possible. Plastic surgery, professional makeup, a new way of carrying myself. You were looking for a frightened 17-year-old girl, but I became a different person." Hyun-woo sank into the chair, covering his face with his hands. "My God. How long?" "From the very beginning. Your wife, Ji-ho, Min-ji, they all fell into my web. I studied your lives down to the smallest details, found all weaknesses, all pain points. And you were going to destroy us." "Yes," Yu-jin answered simply. "But now, I don't know." Hyun-woo raised his head and looked at her. "Why did you change your mind?" "Because you changed. All of you changed. Ji-ho became bankrupt not because of me, he brought himself to this state with gambling and bad decisions. Min-ji cheats on her husband not because I made her, she's just unhappy in marriage. And you." Yu-jin came closer. "You've been tormented by guilt for 15 years. Every night you see nightmares about me. Isn't that punishment?" "Not enough," Hyun-woo said quietly. "I deserve more." "No," Yu-jin sat in the chair opposite. "You know what I realized over these weeks? We were both broken children. You hid your pain behind aggression, I behind silence and submission. But in the end, we both suffered. That doesn't justify what I did." "No, it doesn't justify. But it explains." Hyun-woo stood and went to the window. "What now? Are you going to see it through?" Yu-jin took out a folder with compromising material on each of her former tormentors from her bag. "I can destroy you with one phone call. Your career, marriage, reputation, everything will collapse in hours." She placed the folder on the table between them. "But I won't do it." "Why?" "Because it won't bring back my childhood. Won't heal my pain. It will only cause new pain, to you, to your family, and to me." Yu-jin stood and approached Hyun-woo. "I want to try something different." "What?" "Healing. For both of us." Hyun-woo turned to her, and tears glistened in his eyes. Yu-jin. I'm so sorry. If I had a time machine, I would. Shoo, she put her finger to his lips. The past cannot be changed. But the future can be changed. How? With honesty. Are you ready to tell your wife the truth? About your past, about who I am? Hyun-woo nodded. Yes. She deserves to know. And the others? Ji-ho, Min-ji, Se-hun? Yes, them too. Let them decide for themselves how to live further, knowing the truth. Yu-jin smiled, for the first time in many years, sincerely. Then let's begin. But there's one condition. What? Therapy. Couples therapy for the two of us. If we're going to heal, we must do it right. Hyun-woo extended his hand to her. Agreed. They shook hands, and Yu-jin felt the burden of years of hatred finally beginning to lift from her shoulders. The meeting with the others took place a week later in the conference room of New Dawn. Ji-ho, Min-ji, and Se-hun sat at the long table, wondering why they had all been gathered together. Hyun-woo sat next to Yu-jin, squeezing her hand under the table. Moral support was needed for both of them. Thank you for coming, Yu-jin began. What I'm about to tell you will change your life. But you have the right to know the truth. She stood and slowly walked around the room. 15 years ago, in one of Busan's schools, there was a girl named Han Yu-jin. Quiet, shy, smart. For classmates turned her life into hell. Drove her to attempt suicide. The faces of the listeners began to change. Min-ji paled, Ji-ho nervously fidgeted in his chair, Se-hun stared at the table. This girl disappeared from the city, but not from life. She changed, became stronger, more successful, and returned to take revenge. Yu-jin stopped and looked at each of them. I am that same Han Yu-jin. Deadly silence reigned. Then Min-ji laughed hysterically. This is impossible. You don't look like her at all. Good surgeons work miracles, Yu-jin replied calmly. Ji-ho, your mysterious investor, that's me. Min-ji, your profitable contract, also me. Se-hun, the application you're developing is needed by me to gain access to your personal data. Se-hun raised his head, horror could be read in his eyes. What are you going to do with us? Nothing, Yu-jin said, returning to her seat. The revenge plan is cancelled. What? Ji-ho couldn't believe his ears. You heard correctly. I spent years preparing for revenge, but I realized this won't bring me peace. You're already punished. Ji-ho, you're bankrupt and owe criminal organizations. Min-ji, your marriage is falling apart, and you're cheating on your husband with someone who's using you. Se-hun, you live like a hermit, afraid of the real world. Yu-jin took out folders with compromising material and placed them on the table. I can destroy each of you. But I won't. Instead, I'm offering something different. What? Min-ji whispered. Healing. Group therapy. An opportunity to honestly talk about what happened, understand the causes and consequences, find a way to live further. Ji-ho laughed nervously. And you think we'll agree to this? You have a choice, Yu-jin replied. Either therapy, or I give these folders to journalists, and by morning your life will turn into a nightmare. This is blackmail, Se-hun said. Yes, Yu-jin agreed. But blackmail for good. For healing, not destruction. Hyun-woo squeezed her hand tighter. I agree, he said. To therapy. One by one, the others also nodded. They had no choice, but for the first time in many years, they had hope. The first group therapy sessions were agonizing. They screamed, cried, accused each other. Yu-jin told about years of pain, about nights when she wanted to die, about how hatred almost turned her into a monster. Hyun-woo admitted that he tormented her because he didn't know how to express his feelings. That at home his drunk father beat him, and school was the only place where he could feel strong. Min-ji told about the pressure to be perfect, about how humiliating others was a way to boost her own self-esteem. Ji-ho spoke about the fear of appearing weak, about how aggression was a defense mechanism. Se-hun explained that he was simply afraid of becoming the next victim, so he joined the aggressors. Gradually, hatred began to dissolve, giving way to understanding. Not justification, understanding. Months passed. Hyun-woo divorced his wife, honestly telling her the whole truth. The divorce went civilly. Soo-jin even thanked him for his honesty and admitted that their marriage had long been a formality. Yu-jin and Hyun-woo began dating slowly, carefully. Their relationship was built on a completely new foundation: trust, understanding, honesty. Strange, Yu-jin said one evening as they walked along the embankment. "I spent so many years hating you, and now?" "And now?" Hyun-woo asked quietly. "And now I understand that we were both victims. Victims of our own fears, pain, misunderstanding." Hyun-woo stopped and turned to her. "Yu-jin, I want to tell you something. Not as part of therapy, not as atonement for guilt, but simply as a man to a woman. Say it. I love you. I loved you even then, in school, though I didn't understand it. I love you now, when I know who you really are. And I will love you always, regardless of whether you forgive me or not." Yu-jin felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "And you know what's most amazing? This love heals me more than any revenge." Together, Yu-jin and Hyun-woo created the Healing the Past program, a unique methodology for working with victims of school bullying and their former abusers. Their own story became the foundation for helping thousands of people throughout the country. Ji-ho, overcoming his financial problems with Yu-jin's help, became a trainer at her centers, helping teenagers with aggression problems. Min-ji divorced her husband and started a new life, becoming a specialist in working with bullying victims in schools. Se-hun overcame his social phobia and began programming applications for psychological help. All four former school tormentors turned into protectors of those they had once hurt. A year had passed since the day Yu-jin revealed her identity. Life had changed dramatically, but for the better. Their program helped hundreds of people, their story inspired many, their love grew and strengthened every day. And now Hyun-woo brought her to the very place where it all began, to the roof of their old school. Now the building was abandoned, the school had been moved to a new building, but for them this place had special meaning. "Why are we here?" Yu-jin asked, though she already guessed. Hyun-woo took a small box from his pocket and knelt on one knee. "Yu-jin, 15 years ago in this place I caused you pain that almost cost you your life. Today I want to promise you in this same place a life full of love and happiness." He opened the box, and in the rays of the setting sun, a simple but elegant ring sparkled. "Marry me not because you forgive the past, but because you believe in our future." Yu-jin looked at him, at the ring, at the place where she had once wanted to die, and now felt more alive than ever before. "Yes," she said, and this simple word was full of hope, love, and faith that people really can change. 2 years later Yu-jin stood at the altar in a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of white roses. Hyun-woo, in an elegant dark suit, looked at her with such love that all the guests had tears in their eyes. "Han Yu-jin," the priest said, "do you agree to take Kang Hyun-woo as your husband, to love and support him in joy and sorrow, in sickness and health, until the end of your days?" "I do," Yu-jin answered firmly. "Kang Hyun-woo, do you agree to take Han Yu-jin as your wife, to love and protect her, to be her faithful companion until the end of your days?" "I do," Hyun-woo replied, and there was such conviction in his voice that no doubts remained. In the front row sat Ji-ho, Min-ji, and Se-hun, no longer enemies, but friends who had walked together the path from hatred to understanding, from pain to healing. When Hyun-woo and Yu-jin kissed, announced husband and wife, all the guests rose from their seats. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a celebration of love's triumph over hatred, forgiveness over revenge, healing over pain. We did it, Hyun-woo whispered, pressing his wife to him. Yes, Yu-jin smiled. We really did it. She had returned to her hometown 5 years after the tragedy with plans for revenge. But instead of destroying the lives of her tormentors, she helped them, and herself, find the path to healing. Revenge was indeed served cold, but love proved stronger. And as they walked out of the church under a rain of rose petals, Yu-jin understood, sometimes the sweetest revenge is a happy life. And the greatest punishment for enemies is turning them into friends.